PaperX are doing something that could fundamentally change the way Valorant is played.
They've been told their entire career in Valorant that W Gaming is great until it meets DRX. And today they're trying to prove everybody wrong that they can speedrun DRX as well.
This is DRX any percent right now.
In the biggest match of their 2023 season, they tore up the standard playbook in a best-of-5 series against DRX, picked Reyna on multiple maps, and pulled off one of the most historic comebacks in Valorant history. But why does their crazy playstyle and strange agent selection work? This is how PaperX play the most unique and potentially the best Valorant in the entire world. Let's start by taking a quick look at the first time PaperX played Reyna against DRX earlier in the season. The last round of the attack half starts with DRX popping their Viper's Pit in A short and throwing what has been their standard cascade out through showers. The cascade comes out to block vision and threatens a potential flash and crunch through the teleporter behind the protection of its wall. Because of this threat, DRX expects PaperX to somewhat respect the utility and carefully work around it. Instead, PaperX nopes their way right through the cascade and into showers on the Reyna, while Brimstone is shooting a few shots to distract anybody who might be watching the angle. It also disguises the fact that Reyna has pushed up quickly, and we can see that DRX's Harbor expects the cascade to have basically worked and discouraged a push because he quickly walks out of showers and turns his attention towards A short. But something meanwhile has not stopped walking forward and quickly makes it to the entrance of the site, where he threatens Harbor's jump peak and then prompts the Viper orb to go up to try and shut down the shower's exit. Again, DRX clearly expects their utility to do its job, and again, something completely disrespects the Viper orb by leering through and hopping up into the bench area under the cover of the blind. His position is so isolated, but the move is so insanely aggressive that DRX has no idea that Reyna is this deep onto the site. So when DRX continues to try and play the round out at their normal pace of play and goes to cycle their smoke utility to continue stalling, they're greeted by Reyna doming Harbor out of the server and leaving Viper completely alone and surrounded in her pit. What really got me about this clip is just how clueless DRX is about how aggressive PaperX are playing the round. It's like the teams are playing completely different games. In DRX's version of Valorant, a smoke stops enemy players from going through it. And in PaperX's game, smokes don't exist. This is a theme that I want to pay attention to for the rest of the video, because PaperX are playing a different game than everyone else. Take this earlier example from the same match. DRX are on an eco round and PaperX are gearing up to hit the A site. The most dangerous place to clear on an eco round on Bind is lamps, because it forces rifles to fight at close range against a worse buy. Luckily for PaperX, they have one of the best tools for clearing lamps in Brimstone's Orbital Strike. But PaperX takes this play to a whole different level by sectioning off lamps with their Harbor wall and then dropping the Space Laser on top of it. This is so sick to watch because not only does the wall stop any last second peeks to A short, but it slows anybody trying to escape out of the orbital strike and guarantees a kill with that ultimate. It's such a creative use of Harbor smoke that I've really never seen anyone do before. Speaking of which, what the hell is this wall? This round demonstrates another super interesting thing that PaperX do that I'll just call site sectioning. As we can see, they're setting up to hit A site with 5 players down short, which means that they have nobody clearing showers. As PaperX tend to do, the execute starts by brute forcing through DRX's one-way smoke. But this is not just a brain-dead rush to their doom. Harbor throws a cascade to block off lamps, and then uses this weird high tide wall to section off showers and bench. What this does is it allows the charging attackers to focus all of their attention on a single sight line straight ahead and forces DRX to take some super awkwardly positioned fights if they want to contest. Then PRX drops smokes on Heaven and Pipes while flashing around the back of Truck, which allows Reyna to push forward. At the same time, Jing flies into his own little cage match outside of showers with a judge and easily wins the 1v1 there. It basically breaks up their execute into multiple different fights. It's kind of genius. Wait. What the hell is this wall? Like, there's no way this is good, right? This round starts with a really cool little raised satchel to follow the Sky Flash, super similar to the standard Jet plus Omen fast aggression that we see with a standard Ascent comp to take A main. With A main secured, Forsaken makes his way across middle and throws a high tide that blocks off the site from his own team. You might also notice that the wall is too short and leaves this awkward gap to deal with as well. But what it does do is it makes the round extremely uncomfortable for DRX. First of all, where the heck are you supposed to play as a defender? Do you play in front of the wall like Stax is doing, or behind it and try to spam? This wall basically splits the sight hit into two different parts and denies the operator line from heaven to main. Let's contrast this with the usual execute setup we see on Ascent with a smoke for door and maybe but not always one for heaven. Sova darts up around here, Jet dashes in alone, KO flashes, Omen flashes, and basically everyone floods the site together to try and team clear the entire site at once. This has been effective enough to work for basically every team, but also allows for players to hide in hell, late peek heaven, hide behind the heaven double stack, and even just sit in tree and spam the cross. In Paper Rex's version, they are just fighting for the first part of the site. It's way less angles to check while coming through the choke point, and once they have control of the ground in front of the choke point, they can then flood the back part of the site from way more spots than all just running through a single line of sight. They use Sky's Dog to find the isolated KO in front of the wall, which then allows Reyna to flash in and take him out. This then allows something to dismiss forward as sort of an invincible drone, which pulls Omen's crosshair off the main choke point and lets the rest of Paper Rex flood into trade. We can also see just how awkward this harbor wall makes the entire round for the operator who tries to aggressively help but has absolutely no reasonable shot and is immediately shut down. It's such a unique approach to playing the map that DRX clearly just has no answer for. And the utility usage doesn't even have to be perfect as long as it makes sense to the Paper Rex players and they can play around it the way they want to, because it's clearly not comfortable for the more traditionally minded DRX players. And this is what I really want to focus on, the difference in thinking. The last year of Valorant has seen a strong push towards a dual smokes meta where the majority of rounds end up with both teams on either side of several smokes blindly spamming away at each other. Utility gets so much respect, and big ultimates are exclusively used for site executes or retakes. But Paper Rex says that shit is boring, and they rip a harbor ult down the middle of the map on defense and 4-man push market as the barriers drop. Paper Rex drops smokes on either side of middle to section off the entire market for a brawl inside the harbor ultimate. And DRX end up being pretty lucky to only have 2 players committed to this area, which allows both to narrowly make their escape. But even though the initial plan doesn't necessarily pay off for Paper Rex, the reactive utility is so good as Forsaken instantly walls off the market entrance to attacker spawn and the path to Fountain. This boxes DRX in completely to their spawn and allows Something's Reyna to reposition to a safer spot on B long. It also means that DRX is essentially restarting the round with only a minute and 10 seconds to work with and has to use a bunch of early utility to get up towards the site. This gives Paper Rex plenty of time to restack hookah and basically force DRX into a one-dimensional site hit through Octagon. Again, pay attention to the unorthodox reactive smokes thrown by Paper Rex as DRX hits the site. Harbor wall sections off the front part of the site, Brim smoke connects middle tube to pocket, and Something's Reyna instantly leers and drops out of the hookah smoke in Empress form to add to the chaos. This entire round is just DRX being forced to play at Paper Rex's pace and being completely lost in the sauce as a result. It makes me seriously consider these questions. What is correct Valorant? Is this game basically just Counter-Strike with abilities like we've been led to believe? Are the maps solvable with a single optimized agent comp like we've seen on Ascent? Or is this more of a game where flexibility and moment-to-moment creativity is the key to victory? Since the release of the game, we've been trending towards the Counter-Strike style of play with methodical map control, slow mid-round adjustments, and optimized utility. But then Paper Rex comes along and says, hey, we've got a bunch of cool little utility combos, interesting new ways of using our abilities, and we don't really care what everyone else is doing. In fact, how are you going to counter-strat or prepare for a team that is basically just going with the flow of the round and doing whatever feels right in the moment instead of whatever might be the most optimized play on paper? Maybe this is what real Valorant is supposed to look like, and it's certainly why Paper Rex are the coolest team on the planet.